Hi everyone, good morning. Welcome to the first panel of the day. Thank you very much for taking time out from your schedule to join us. I think we have our entire esteemed panel on the stage, so I'll just hand it over to them for a quick round of introductions. Just introducing myself, my name is Ishank. I am a co-founder at Kratos Studios, which is the IP owner of IndieGG. We are building a decentralized game distribution platform in which the gamers are the owners of the platforms themselves, and we are working with games all over the world to bring them into India and Brazil primarily, right? I think I'll hand it over to each one of you, and we'll do a quick short round of introductions, starting with you, Anubhav.
So yeah, hi. I guess the turnout seems to be fairly well. It's still double digits, guys. So I'm glad about that. Also, I'm glad that game distribution panel is actually seeing this problem is a general use case thing. So a little bit about me. I'm the co-founder of Funky Monks. Funky Monks is a venture studio. We grow brands. We work technically with blockchain and gaming side. And a little background about me. I've been in the investment in tech space, worked with clients like Ethereum, Solana Foundation, Aptos, people such as these on the tech side, and work with also we manage a VC syndicate. So yeah, that.
Thanks for that. Hi guys, my name is Parun. I'm the co-founder of Nodestar. Nodestar is a Web3 and AI strategy and development firm. We help with fundraising, business development, and partnerships. My background is in consulting. I worked at Cornerstone Research in New York for 6+ years, working on a bunch of antitrust, M&A, litigation securities cases. Actually worked on one of the first Bitcoin spoofing cases that happened in the US back in 2019. That kind of really sparked a lot of things for me, timed the bull run perfectly. And then I quit my job to start this company about 1 month before Luna collapsed. So, timing's everything.
Hello, everyone. I'm Inal, gaming lead at Ton Foundation. So Ton Foundation is basically, it's a foundation behind the Ton blockchain, which was developed by the Telegram team several years ago. And we are like exclusive partners of Telegram in terms of like Web3. So if you build any like games in Telegram and related to Ton, or maybe not related to Ton, but in Telegram, then probably I'm the right person to contact with. My background is in game development. I was a co-founder and CEO of game studio before joining Ton Foundation as well.
Hey, I'm Arun Rajappa. I'm the country manager for Riot Games in India and South Asia. Prior to this, I spent a number of years on the product side of things at Microsoft and then Google. At Google, I worked on Android and Play Store. At Microsoft, on products like Outlook and Teams.
Okay, thank you everyone. So let's dive straight into it. So Arun, maybe we'll start with you, right? I was hoping to start the talk by hitting the core of the panel itself, right? We are talking about the future of game distribution. But let's also talk a little about how game distribution itself has evolved, right? From the time of arcade games to the time of freemium, and now we have a bunch of Web3 games also coming out. How do you see the journey of game distribution evolving, and what lessons from the past we can take into the future?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I spent some time thinking about it. Back in the day, and I'm probably telling the audience too much about my age, but back in the day, I think when I started playing games, you literally got games from your friends, right? So you got games when just you went down and like to the corner of the street and like you caught up with your friends and you trade games, right? And so there was a real sense of community and like a lot of fun and joy about getting a new game and trying it out and going and chatting with your friends and telling them, hey, I'm at this level and so on and so forth. I think that stayed for a while through the 80s and early 90s. I think with the advent of mobile and also with the growth of Steam, for sure, I think game distribution has gotten a lot more consolidated, right? And it's become a lot more centralized. Um, I'm a gamer at heart, so I feel like some of the joy of discovery has gone out of finding a game. You're told what games to play. You don't necessarily discover games as much as you used to through friends and community. So I'm kind of really looking forward to the next few years because I think with the blockchain and Web3, I think there's again a optimism about the rise of community and how sort of community can come together to make great things happen. So I think it's a real opportunity for game distribution to go back to its roots about being fun and like enjoyable and more casual in some sense. Yeah.
No, thank you. You've highlighted some of the main issues, right, in terms of the current distribution model. Inal, would you like to add something to that since you work very closely with Telegram, which is one of the largest distribution channels in the world?
Yeah, definitely. Because I actually wanted to add that there is like a distribution channel which is more like social, which still exists, but it depends on the market, on the country, of course. But I don't know. Let's take WeChat, which has, for example, mini games inside a social app, so it's inside a messenger. Same with Telegram. Telegram is becoming something like a super app with lots of mini apps. So you can discover with your friends, you can play with your friends instead. It still exists, maybe not that big. And also, what's going to be the next step is very interesting in my opinion. I mean, if the whole movement around like metaverses will still be alive, we can see the same. I mean, when you go with your friends, when you play with your friends, but not in the real world, but in online, you discover games, etc., etc. So just wanted to say that there is another distribution channel, which is basically super apps. Depends on the market again. I mean, in some countries, super apps, they just don't exist. On other markets, they just start emerging. In China, this is probably one of the biggest distribution channels. And also, maybe in the future we will see same experience of discovering games with your friends in metaverses, virtual worlds. I don't like the metaverse word, but still.
Yeah, no, I used to live in China, and in the 4 years that I spent there, one of the big changes I saw inside WeChat itself was the idea of mini apps inside WeChat, which if you were to extrapolate and add the Web3 and blockchain layer to it, you could also argue you can create early versions of the metaverses on your phone itself inside those mini apps, right? So what you're saying is striking a chord with me, because one of the big problems a lot of studios that we speak to face is that Google, Facebook sort of almost have a monopoly when it comes to game discovery, right? And Arun, you worked in Google yourself, so you probably have seen it from inside out as well. So what do you guys think about that? What sort of things can happen in terms of getting the power or the balance of power shift more towards the game developers and away from centralized platforms, which is sort of the core of the topic today? So one of you can start, or maybe Pirun, if you have a view.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, what's interesting, obviously, Web3 right now is not doing too well, although Bitcoin's back above 30K, so fingers crossed. But, again, with like Web3, there was like this growth of like multiple launchers and, sort of game discovery platforms that happened, which was fantastic because, again, now there was competition. And as a user, you started getting rewarded in tokens for like, participating in these, like, the growth of these sort of products, so to speak, right? And you were a part of a community, whether that was on Discord, whether that was on Telegram. And then you were rewarded for discovering, which kind of adds almost a new gamified element, which is kind of what you were talking about, right? But the flip side of that coin is now when these token economies crash, when they're not sustainable, then these people migrate en masse. And you also find out from data, maybe a lot of the people who actually joined were just there for their tokens, not for the games themselves. So it's a little bit of a challenge. That's kind of my take, and I'm still not sure which way I fall on it.
That's an interesting point. So if we were to zoom out of the tokens as a store of value, but in terms of almost as partial ownership of the platforms, if we were to just take that route and treat tokens more as digital equity rather than cryptocurrency, so to say, do you think, and Anubhav, would love to hear your views on this, do you think as somebody who's been in the ecosystem on the other side, before you were a founder, you were also contributing to the ecosystem, do you think that can align incentives in a way that the community gets more and more involved in the distribution itself?
Certainly. So while we're exploring the topic of game distribution, different game distribution models, we got to think of it, what are the most, I'll say, sustainable alternatives? Those are obviously the community driven. Now, let's think very pragmatically about it. How will the community and why will the community be interested in, participating in that, provided that there's an incentive. The incentive could be social, the incentive could be financial. Now, this is something that I guess, Ishank, you'd very well understand. They have a game discovery platform in DGG, and they're doing quite a good job at it. So the ideal being that the guilds or these what we in our technical jargons call DAOs, right, do is that they incentivize the community members by giving them governance rights. So let's say that I have a guild. Now, if the community members, that are the people right here, they have a right to say how to actually run it. They have the right to vote on it. This is similarly to how things happen in Ethereum Foundation as well. So there are things called Ethereum improvement proposals. The developers or the users of Ethereum could actually vote as to how the security, how the network should be run. There's actual voting that goes on that's very transparent, and people can actually plot that. So I think it's the incentivization of community members via, I'll say, be it social or governance or financial incentives that will, drive out the distribution and make the entire model more sustainable and develop it better.
Got it. So we spoke a little about the community. Sorry, go ahead.
Just wanted to add one thing. I mean, I want to make this conversation a bit controversial.
Perfect. Thank you. There we got 10 more YouTube views.
I mean, I represent layer one blockchain actually and foundation behind it. But the thing is, users don't care about distribution at all. They just don't care about convenience, right? Most of them don't care about like having, I don't know, power voting on something, etc. They just want to enjoy the game. I mean, with a play to earn, with all this stuff which is not sustainable at all, we discovered one thing. Well, like one result of play to earn for me personally is that users, they don't care. I mean, they should care about the game itself. They should not care about anything else, like distribution, like, I don't know, value, etc. If they care about anything other than the game itself, we're done. There is nothing to do there anymore. I mean, this is like, what I wanted to say is that basically, only users can decide which distribution channels will work and can work. And in my opinion, convenience is the only thing which makes like distribution channels like successful or not. So when we talk about like owning something, I don't know, making a decision in a product or something, users don't care. Let me be honest. I mean, they don't care about it. I mean, 90% of them don't care. Maybe like the core audience of a game, they will care. But like the rest, they don't care and they will never do. So we have to think about like building like, I don't know, communities, distribution channels, wherever, which is at the first place convenient. That's the only thing. I mean, selling them that you own something, I don't think that it will work out. That's the only thing I wanted to add.
I kind of want to hop on or like sit on the fence on this one again. So let's take DeFi as an example, like Synthetics, GMR, like basically all these exchanges, right? Where like governance matters because like, the structure of these protocols or whatever, these like financial derivatives, like it's billions of dollars, right? Depending on how they work, what the risk tolerance is, like how they record all of those, collateral conversion. And even there, governance is a problem, right? Like you look at this, like, you're going to get like 1 to like 10 people out of a community of 10,000 to actually vote on any kind of reasonable proposal. If it's not happening in DeFi where real value is being generated, at least in terms of money, like how are you going to do it in games, right? So that's one problem. But on the flip side, like, I think in some ways gamers are very engaged. Like we look at this content creator market where people are watching other people play games. I recently met the founder of Words with Friends, and he's building this game called Wildcard where like spectators could actually impact player performance in the game. Now, I mean, pushing that model forward, like maybe governance does matter, especially in like competitive environments, like esports, things like that. And maybe things like tokens and NFTs allow for the creation of prize pools where previously none would have existed before. So you're almost like bootstrapping competitive game economies, which can work really well in places like India, Southeast Asia, Vietnam, for example, with Axie Infinity, of course. So I mean, I think it's up to developers as well to like kind of think about new ways in which they can use these incentive structures and flywheels to create scenarios that are win-win for both players and for, obviously their investors.
Interesting. So we covered two main points there, right? So firstly, I agree with you. Gamers only care about the game. They don't care about everything else. But I think we should also keep in mind that point around alignment of incentive structures. While the gamers who care about the game, if there is an alignment of incentive structure of some sort, maybe they will become your primary evangelists. I think there is merit to that argument that Anubhav made. But let's segue into a question which I was thinking of getting into later, but since you mentioned it, Pirun, I think this is a question more for Arun and Anubhav, and then obviously the two of you guys can also jump in. Is do you think there is a huge growth in the creator economy, right? And the point that Pirun was making around the creators themselves, do you see that evolving into one of the primary channels, or in many ways a tangible alternate to at scale distribution?
So obviously, okay, so let's try to keep the jargons aside and I'll just use the words, I'll say influencers, let's say creators or influencers who are right now, let's say only recording their own performance or streaming out those particular games. Again, how are they particularly benefiting out? So I'm more of a numbers guy, so I'd like to work on the fact that, okay, how are they pragmatically being, getting the advantage? They upload the video on YouTube, they get the views, they earn from there. Obviously, the platform keeps a chunk of their fees, right, regardless to say. Again, we might say if the influencer has its own good moat, if he's worth his salt, he'll get those views, he'll get a good audience, build up a community, and then the revenue will still keep pouring in. But what if there was an alternative? What if I can say that there's an alternative, there's a platform wherein the platform doesn't keep a majority or a huge chunk of your money? That is where I'll say the entire power play of the new creator economy actually comes in. That is, number one, the creator owns, not technically owns, but manages the community, right? And at the same time, he does not have to pay the platform the hard-earned salt money that he's actually playing. Number two is, of more often than not, if there are any creators here, anyone on Instagram or YouTube or I don't know, Snapchat or something else as well, they might agree on this one particular thing that let's say they are trying to sell out some of the things on their particular channel. They may not get the reselling value after the first sale that happens. Let's say I'm a creator, I made a painting or like say an NFT or something. So it got sold out and after that I'm not getting any value. Right. That is where I guess the value of the NFTs actually come in. That let's say I buy out another, like every time the sale of an NFT happens, a non-fungible token happens, the primary creator still gets a value add-on. So that is how the creator economy is now booming out, and it is seeing many use cases of loyalty angle as well. So yeah, on to you, Arun.
Yeah, I'm just going to zoom out, right? And I couldn't agree more with you, which is that I think we get into gaming as a player because of the joy of gaming and the fun from the game, right? And then the next very human thing that happens is you want to share your joy, right? So I think creation of content comes from a place of community and sort of doing it very authentically. And I think for viewers of this content, I think trust is really important, right? For your audience, right? So when I kind of look at the creator economy, I think what remains constant is more interesting than what's sort of changing. And what remains constant is this thing of, hey, I'm doing it because of the joy of what I'm doing. I want to share it with the community. I want to do it very authentically. And I want the community to build trust in me. In all of this, big picture, I think the place where the blockchain comes in is in that element of trust, all right? But I think the bigger picture here is how do we use something like the blockchain to create communities that are trusted, where people can interact with the same kind of fidelity as they can in real life or close to that, and have a sense of, hey, this is a very authentic conversation I'm having with somebody I like or I love or I follow, right? We already see that happening on YouTube to some extent with sort of people following content creators, but it's missing often the authenticity. It's often done for incentives that are not only because of the love of the game, right? It's not only done in a trusted way or always in a trusted way. And those are the things I think blockchain can address. Yeah, but that's my thought.
No, that's an interesting perspective. That's a good segue also to thinking about UGC, right? Because while we talk a lot about creators, I know Riot, for example, has a big focus on UGC itself, right? And UGC is stemming from the love of the game. So, Inal, would love to hear your views on how platforms such as Telegram, for example, can help create a powerful tool to amplify user-generated content, right? Because at the end of the day, if you have what 300 million right now users on Telegram, right? How many users do you have on Telegram right now?
800 million.
There you go. So I was way off. Okay, 800 million users on Telegram. I'm sure a lot of them would love to share things with their friends on Telegram, right?
Yeah.
So how do you see the role of UGC and sharing driving distribution?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, Telegram is it's a messenger at the first place, but also it's something like a social network right now. I mean, there are like channels, there are friends, there are like huge chats with like communities, etc., etc. So this is a little bit more than just a messenger right now. And what we see in the last couple years, maybe in the last year, is that users want not just to communicate with each other, but create a content and share it with their friends, with their family, or maybe to the broader audience using channels. So basically, I would say that Telegram is just providing like lots of tools to do that. The first one is obviously a channel. This is like one directional communication usually. I mean, the creator. Creator of a content, a blogger, wherever, whoever is doing something and sharing with users. This is like, it was step one. But step two right now is that there are like real communities around channels, around games as well, where users can generate their own content and share with these community or with their friends. So there are like, Telegram is doing tools for that because there is a demand for that, obviously. If we talk about like games and UGC, to be honest, this is like, for example, in Telegram, there are mini games. I mean, many people, they don't know that there are games in Telegram, but they are. And we don't see like much demand yet for UGC in games, because how people usually spend time in a messenger, in games in messenger, it's like casual, hyper casual games just to, I don't know, spend another 20 minutes of your life, usually. So they usually don't care about generating content stuff around game. They just want to enjoy. Maximum what they do usually is just, oh, I found like a nice game about like, I don't know, a meme, and share it with their friend. Or share it in like a group of their friends. That's the only thing which we see right now in Telegram in terms of games, to be honest. There are lots of like content generated inside Telegram, but not about games yet. There is a growth of it, but I don't know how exactly it will like develop in the future, to be honest. This is like a good question. Will it develop or not? And how Web3 can help here? Because I mean, there are some examples of games trying to, like, I don't know, build your own game level, share it with your friends, use it as an NFT, sell it as an NFT, because there is also wallet integration inside Telegram. So, like, making the Web3 part of it, like, more accessible for users. But this is just on experiments level. I mean, we will see results maybe in the next, like, 6 to 12 months, because now it's very early stages.
No, that's kind of you to at least be honest about the fact that it's not a proven thing just yet. Any of you has seen examples of UGC playing an important role? Because if you really think about it, the growth of Roblox in many ways is all driven by UGC. If you would, I mean, yes, they're using a centralized platform for that UGC, but that's because the users don't have an alternate where else to post their videos. But anything else that you've come across where you've seen the power of UGC drive growth?
So, I mean, obviously there's Decentraland and Sandbox, which I don't really enjoy playing. I've been on there once. But one interesting thing was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Genopets. Oh, of course. So it's like a walk-turn concept, right? So on your mobile, it's entirely Web2, right? You like walk, like you feed your pet, you know, you do a few activities, you earn some like emeralds. Now they're building out their game economy, and like the computer or the browser-based experience is entirely Web3, and it's entirely driven by like people generating or UGC for like the things, activities that these pets can do, like for the food that they eat. So it's a really interesting segmentation in terms of like, all right, well, we have the Web2 users, kind of like you were saying, hyper casual. All they want to do is, you know, go chill, play, have a good time. And then you have the Web3 people who are kind of working as auxiliary developers almost, because there is this ecosystem on which they're building, which they can then monetize. So I found that's a pretty fascinating example.
So that's an interesting point. You basically are saying that there is, the UGC is not just around content around the game, but content inside the game. What elements, what characters the game developers can have. You're effectively saying that because of the transparency that the blockchain enables, users can start contributing to characters of the game itself. I saw, Arun, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that for Riot games, I mean, whether it's League of Legends or Valorant or the new game we are launching in India, Team Fight Tactics, I think UGC is really important. A lot of the UGC, or rather, all of the UGC comes from people who deeply care about the game. It's part of their identity. They spend like hours with the game, and they're doing it from the love of the game, right? And we don't sort of incentivize it with money or any of those kind of things. And so it's really me expressing myself and the love for the game, right? So it's we don't see it as a sort of tactic for distribution or marketing or any of that. We celebrate it as, hey, this is sort of the joy that our game sparks in our players, and so it's really core to what we do. Yeah.
I like that. I like the thought. Did you want to add something?
Not really ask. This was more of a, I'll say, a new purport that we're seeing now. We're talking about game distribution models, and a precursor to that is basically content discovery. So this is another new route that we've been seeing in a lot of games. That let's say you were just talking about Decentraland as well. So that's I'll say we're going a little bit towards metaverse side, but even in games, for example, Riot games which could have this, that within the in-game there could be smaller real estate places like lounges or something, which is something being explored. That is a couple of content creators own that particular lounge. The user, the gamer, could actually venture inside there, and that is how you discover out the content for them. Now, these content creators are like the OG people, the game streamers who have been like really into the game, have grown the community of the game. So this becomes a precursor to the content discovery, and this content discovery becomes a precursor to game distribution, hence coming up with an alternative of a game distribution as a model.
Interesting point. That's a good angle to think more about, right? So, if we were to switch perspective for a second and switch from the community lens to the developer lens. Now, one of the problems a lot of studios face, especially the mid-tier studios, I'm not talking about the top ones or the ones who are struggling in any case with the game, but the guys who have a good game at their hand but are now solving the monetization problem, is the 30% Google and Apple tax, so to say, right? And a lot of studios are now thinking of potential alternates. Now, as you guys are both working in sort of the infra space, do you see there will be a need for these platforms that will be created from the push by the developers themselves to want to go on to other platforms outside of, let's say, a Google, Apple, or a Facebook?
I mean, I think there are definitely like more monetization streams or areas of revenue, right? I mean, you could sell NFTs, you could do a token launch. I mean, now, for example, at least in the US, you can launch your token and it's not a security. That's fantastic. You're running on the blockchain, so your transaction fees is obviously not 30%. So all those benefits. But what I'm seeing from a lot of players is like a lot of the OGs, when they buy, like, let's say they buy an NFT, like right when the game kicks off, obviously they're part of the game, they feel like they're investors in the game, but then they don't want to buy more NFTs. And so there's a lack of recurring revenue for these games, right? I mean, how does like FIFA Ultimate Team make money? They try and like hook you on like buying packs, and you want to keep getting better players, you keep buying better packs, or like, Call of Duty, they publish seasons. But, with people who have bought NFTs in these Web3 games, they're like, hey, we should be getting like benefits for life. It's like a lifetime pass almost. So getting them to buy new NFTs or new sort of assets or do more microtransactions, the game seems to be more challenging. So I don't know where like, the net revenue falls on either side, but curious sort of your perspective on this.
Just wanted to highlight one thing. You said investor in a game. It sounds weird, right? Investor in a game, not a player. Investor in a game. I mean, you call a person who bought NFT, which is in-game item, investor into a game, which is like, for me, it's something like, I know what you mean. I know like the whole industry was like talking about that, but for me, it still doesn't make much sense, to be honest. Investor in a game, because you're not an investor. You're either a player or a developer or investor, but not like a mix. This sounds a bit weird to me when you say like you bought NFT and you're an investor. No, you're just a player, and you should be considered as a player, and you should be treated as a player. Our main goal is to give you some like a joy. I mean, to give you like an experience of playing the game, and not to try to, I don't know, give you all the benefits, give you, I don't know, earning options, etc., etc. They just like wanted to highlight that this topic is very like controversial. We can discuss it like for hours. But yeah, going back to the like original question, just wanted to say that 30% is definitely a challenge for many like game developers. I, as a, like a, in the past as a co-founder of a studio, that was a really like a big challenge. Yes, but there are other monetization options, really. You can try, I don't know, even with the secondary market of NFTs, you can try to experiment. You can get something out of it. Definitely it's going to be not that well established as like, I don't know, Apple, Google, wherever, in-app purchase ads. But there are other options that you have to try if you're a game developer. And the thing is, what I wanted to say, what I wanted to highlight, for example, in Telegram, there is a wallet. So we tried to make like the Web3 experience as smooth as possible for users. And we ask developers, hey, you're a game developer, just launch your game as a mini app in Telegram and try to monetize not with Apple and Google, but with maybe with a wallet. And what we see, not many developers want to do that. I mean, they're quite fine with the status quo. I was kind of surprised because that was my problem. Maybe it will just take some time because the wallet was launched like a month ago. But we don't see like many developers saying, yes, we want to try this monetization. No, they come to us and the first question is it possible to have in-app purchases? I mean, I want to have a Telegram mini app, but I still want in-app purchases. I want ads network, preferably from, I don't know, Meta, Google, wherever. So I was quite surprised that not many developers actually ready to experiment. So this is, I would say, the first thing that we have to maybe like to share. If you're a game developer, be open to new monetization options. Try. I mean, there are lots of players who want to help you to try to like experiment with it. Maybe you will find like a good way to monetize that. Because we cannot, like, we can wait for 10 more years from antitrust, like regulations, etc. And in the Netherlands, I saw a news a couple of days ago that they asked Apple to lower from 30% to like 27. Not much difference, but still. We can wait for 10 more years, or you can try new monetization things. That's what I wanted to say. So just try it.
Got it. Just one point around the investor word, right? Because if you look at the development of games, even Web2, right? EVE Online, Second Life, I think the idea of a role of a speculator inside a game has been around for a while. It's just becoming more and more common because of Web3 games. But I think the idea of a speculator in games is a real one. And as more games allow for trading inside the game and potentially outside the game, that role will become more and more common. Arun, were you adding some point to what?
I was going to quickly add to your point. I think one of the reasons this whole thing happened is like people were selling NFTs, which they were using to fund the games. So they weren't actually players, right? You couldn't be. There was no game to play. So you come in as an investor, and then that frames how you perceive the rest of the game developer, right?
No, one of the biggest investors in gaming, Mitch Lasky, actually called it out, at the very beginning that this was actually bad for retail investors because they didn't even know that they were taking on the role of the investor. Unfortunately, they were thinking of this as an investment into an NFT, but they were actually investing into the development of the game itself, right? Arun, what's your view on the developer side of the problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely 30%, takes a bite of your revenues, right? And so that hurts. But I think, you know, I think long term I'm pessimistic on this. Usually people say long term they're optimistic, but long term I'm pessimistic because I've seen that one incumbent gets replaced with another one, right? And so uh, the thing I would say for people in the room who are sort of into Web3 is that I think fundamentally that spirit of revolution and wanting to sort of do good for the community and like do it in a trusted way, we need to keep that spirit alive, right? And not sort of replace one incumbent with another one 10 years from now who's going to be taking 40%, right? So and it all feels great along the way, and you're like, okay, let's replace the current monopolies with something else, but how do you do that in a way that you make the world a better place, I think is important. And that's, I think, the heart of where Web3 and blockchain began. So,
Question. So unrelated to Web3, right? Like, so Fortnite, for example, got kicked off the Apple Store, and I think they partnered with like GeForce or whatever to just do a cloud version. So maybe is the solution maybe not Web3? Is it just like better cloud gaming, where you don't need an app store?
Go for it.
Yeah, no, cloud gaming again seems super promising right now. I'm looking forward to what happens over the next couple of years. Fingers crossed. I still need to see some of the big titles come out. People really moving to that. Hopefully, it's going to be great for the players, and then we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions from you? Because I thought that was my job. Okay.
Actually, I have one for you.
Okay. So the weirdest question of the panel. So how do you see distribution systems evolve in the next 3 to 5 years? Do you want to go in order? You've been quiet for a while.
So there are a couple of game distribution models that we could particularly go out with. I place my bets personally as well, and this is more of a feedback that I got from the community as well. I place a lot of my own bets on towards the creator side. I believe the evolution of the creator economy would lead to better game distribution models. A lot of games, I guess Arun would actually agree with this, running Riot Games for quite a while, that influencers and creators actually help accelerate the entire game and and create a very good community, a very engaged community, as a matter of fact. Me and Arun, we were just having a conversation just right before this panel, and he said, Anubhav, you know what, if a game is damn good, I might still put up an APK file and people will still download it. The reason being because the community is damn good. The community is going to be engaged. How do you do that? You build up a brand identity. And as someone here from the panel here rightly mentioned, that gamers don't care about investing. Or they're just to satisfy that emotion of a child. They want to have fun. Let them have fun. So having said that, they just want a good game that they can enjoy. For that, you need to bring the brand identity, the trust that can be built via the content creator side, the people who create the content, play the game, have a good moat in the community, and that is how one of the good game distribution models can be built out. Varun?
I mean, I don't actually even know if you need to have a good game. I mean, I think FIFA is like a terrible game, but it's super addictive. Because you're just stacking cards. It's more gambling than it is really playing. For a long time, what I thought would happen is like an IP-based distribution model, at least in Web3. I thought like kind of along the Bored Apes, CryptoPunks model, people would create these IPs around digital characters, create like user-generated stories, and then these large communities like games would be able to integrate these IPs, kind of like Fortnite has done with Web2, to really bring over that audience and like monetize that audience and like create like sustainable game economies. It hasn't happened. I know there are companies that have made it easier for you to take like an NFT and put it into your game, but that doesn't seem to be the problem itself. So I'm really not sure. Like that was kind of my running hypothesis last year. It hasn't materialized. We'll see if something changes.
Yeah, I'm just going to answer this in a different way. But over the last weekend, I watched this movie called 12th Fail. It's a new movie that's come out. Go watch it if you haven't.
I read your LinkedIn review as well.
But this is how distribution happens, right? And so what I mean by that is I love the movie. It was brilliant. I'm a fan of the movie. I've been telling everybody about it. Go and watch this movie. It's brilliant, right? And games distribution is not different, right? When you love a
Word
game,
of mouth.
Yeah, when you love a game, it's word of mouth. That's lasted like 100 years. It'll last another 100, right? The technology is, whether it's community, Web3, cloud gaming, those things come and go. But I think fundamentally it's word of mouth and people telling one another that, hey, I love this, I'm a fan of it. If you're a developer, go and make that game, right? Make that game that people talk about and share their love for. Yeah.
I'm 100% agree with Arun. That's like at the first place, it should be interesting for players, and they have to share it. So your main acquisition channel should be word of mouth, to be honest. But on like technical side of the question is important as well. I mean, because most of the audience, I believe, like developers. How many developers, by the way, game developers? Like, raise your hands, please. Okay, my assumption was wrong. Not most of the audience are developers. If you are a developer, it's quite important for you how exactly you distribute your game, how you monetize it, what is like the technical side of it. I would say we can see some changes on the technical side here because of like antitrust regulations, etc. I mean, from the store side, but if we talk about like Web3 side of it, how exactly it can affect the distribution in the next 3-5 years, To be honest, I would not expect like a huge like shifts, drastic changes here. I mean, there are going to be lots of experiments, definitely. Not maybe that like overhyped like list of developers gonna do that, but there are going to be some experiments. There is like a chance that we will see like some successes there. If we see successes, then yeah, then those like models can be scaled. But at this stage, I believe that in the next like at least 3 years, we're going to have the same situation as it is now in terms of like Web3 related stuff, like experiments, small, mid-sized experiments. If something is successful, then again, like something should be scaled. Yeah, that's my view on it.
A follow-up question here. So you're from the Town Foundation, Inal. What's your particular view for the game distribution model that's called Guild? I mean, that's Guild or DAOs. Yeah, so having said that, this is a new popular model that's more community-driven. For most of the developers that are here, they will understand that the community feedback that they get from the Guild is so much better. The A/B testing stage actually goes down. The PMF could be product market fit could be established a little bit early. So what's your view on the emergence of guilds and their efficiency?
Very good question. Thank you for the question. To be honest, we are, and me personally, are very bullish in terms of like guilds, etc., but not that type of guilds that we have seen with play to earn. Because with play to earn, we've seen lots of guilds, lots of like communities where everyone just want to extract value. When everyone just wants to extract value, that is broken. I mean, you cannot scale it, it will not survive. But if this is a community which shares same values, they want to like, I don't know, generate content together, they want to compete with other guilds, etc., just because of the game itself, I mean, of the like core game mechanics, core game loop, then we are very bullish. And there are lots of things that you can do around those types of guilds, around those types of, I mean, it's just traditional guilds. They existed for like tens of years, and those types of guilds, yeah, that's great, that's awesome. And we really want to help those like communities to grow, to adopt like Web3 things, etc. If it's guild like in play to earn, when it's just a community just to extract value, thank you, but no.
So I guess we'll see Telegram making a couple of guilds then for the game discoveries.
I was going to ask, what is your take on this? Since you're with
My
NDG?
take? Oh, perfect. We are just about closing up. So I was going to leave some time for audience Q&A, but I'll give you my take, right? So I actually agree with what Inal is saying. A gaming community is not a new concept. Communities have always been around in gaming. Our view is gaming is not about building one community, it's about aggregating various micro communities, because different communities have different affiliations, but they typically center around either a game or some sort of physical affinity. Let's say it could be a college or your organization, right? Anything that gives you a sense of belonging, that is where the sense of community starts, right? So any platform that can start aggregating these micro communities and then can connect the right micro community with the right game will have a role to play. So that's our personal view, and that's what we are trying to build as Kratos Studios and as NDGG, right? An aggregation of micro communities, and I couldn't agree more with Anal. One of the reasons Kratos Studios bought out NDGG as an IP is because the net extractive nature of a guild model just does not work. It makes limited to 0 sense, and if I'm a developer, I would hate it. Because you're literally saying that I'm going to send 100 people into your game who are all going to get money out of the game, which conceptually doesn't make sense, right? The game economy needs to have a defined circulation inside. So long story short, community has a big role to play. I think word of mouth is the core of community, and not very different from the points the four of you have already covered. I think there will be innovation, but it will be a steady growth and not a change overnight. Yeah? Unfortunately, we are out of time for the Q&A. We have the next panel starting very soon. So thank you, guys. Thank you very much for a very engaged discussion. I think this was a very, very positive vibe to end it at. I think Ashwan and Tanuj wanted to hand out some gifts to you all for participating on the panel today. So I'll just call them over. And thank you one more time.
Finally, point where we came here, like gifts, finally.
All right,
Like
thank
any
you
NFTs
everyone.
in
You've
that,
been a
like,
wonderful
you know,
audience. I'm so sorry we ran out of time for Q&A, but thank you.